My name is William Robert Court. Here's another story. Well, I had more people compliment me. They said, "Bill, you've been a great boss and we really enjoyed working for you." Well, that's nice to hear that, eh? I can't begin to tell you how many different things we made in there. No kidding, right? Everything from tourist submarines to huge big, well, did you ever see the big oil drilling rig that was made?
No.
You know how big the Empress Hotel is? Well, there's a drawing of it superimposed over the Empress Hotel, and it actually straddled the hotel. Can you believe it? That's how big it was. Like, we used to machine a drum as big as this room. It's used in pulp mills. That's the whole area, including the James Bay area. And the VMD has got two positions. One out there, that's the shipyard end, and there's another one in here somewhere that I belong to. And it shows it all, eh? And that's the way Victoria used to look. Oh, they would have been lost without us, because we had a foundry as well. And that is where you make bronze sleeves, you make steel castings of different shapes, you make big gear blanks. What you would do is you would machine everything to size, but it would take a big gear cutting special machine to cut all the teeth exactly right, so you didn't have a half a tooth left over. You had to, everything had to be full size. So we would machine everything to the sizes and then ship them off to a gear cutting plant in Vancouver. And they would cut the teeth for you and send it back. Being as the foreman, we would get calls from pulp mills and mines and various places that had huge equipment. Big rock crushing equipment. They would go into the quarry and chop out all the big rocks. They put it inside of a big machine, and the center part rotated around, rocked back and forth, and rotated. And as it went back and forth and around, it kept breaking the rock smaller and smaller and smaller. And these are big things, as big as square as the room. And the manufacturer was from Guelph, Ontario. And all these different mines had these crushers, all different sizes. So we got to be the person to call if your rock crusher broke down. So we repaired numerous ones of them. And the one trip that is in my mind is they said, "Bill, they've pulled in a crusher on the lake, or on the river, coming down past Fort McMurray. And they've got it pulled up on the beach, and we want you to go and measure it all up and give them a price on repairing it." Well, holy smoke, you know, it was November, and I got there and there's 3 feet of snow on it, and here's this machine sitting on the edge of the water, and I'm supposed to measure it. I took a great big big vernier caliper. It was 6 feet long, and I had a big case, and I took it on the plane with me so I could get in and measure some parts on it. And of course, fortunately, the snow was up there was like powder, not wet like Victoria snow. Anyway, I brushed it all off and did the best I could and measured it all up, and then come back and worked out an estimate, talked to the welding department, talked to the various other shops, and we rebuilt this damn thing for them. But I had to work out a price for it. Now, I had a bad experience. I was called in and said, "Bill, they've got a big problem with a log loading machine up in Port Hardy. The gearing has broken down and they want it new gears right away. Well, oh God. I said, have they got drawings of it all? No, there's no drawings. It's just they've had it for years and the thing is worn out. So get on the plane, Bill, and away I go up to Port Hardy, and here's this big machine with all the broken teeth on the gears. So I got them to send all the broken bits down to us so we can measure them as good as we can. But unfortunately, there was one gear that was different than all the others. And that was the main drive gear that come directly from the motor. And it was a small gear, well, it was 12 inches or more in diameter with tapered teeth on it. And of course I said, well, where's the sample of this? Oh, I don't know, it broke off and it's out in the bush somewhere. Nobody knew where it was, and there was no drawings. Oh God. So our engineering department figured out the proper diameter it should be with the right number of teeth and everything else in it. So we made all these new gears up and shipped them all back to Port Hardy. They assembled it all, and we didn't hear a word for about 2 weeks. We get a phone call, hey, your gears are no damn good. Oh, what do you mean? Well, the one gear, that small gear, is mushing all up. It's too soft. So I had to fly back up to Port Hardy and got them to take it apart. And I brought it back to the shop with me. And I don't know how we come about it, but we found out eventually that it was a completely hardened gear. It was so hard you couldn't file it or saw it or anything. And that's the thing we didn't know. We had no sample to work to. We were able to work out the measurements, but we didn't know how strong the teeth should have been, because there was none. They left it in the bush. So anyway, once we discovered what the problem was, we made him up a new gear and had it hardened properly, sent it back to him, and never ever heard another word since. You know, it just shows how things can backfire on you. There was a complete crew of people in the shipbuilding end of it.
Okay.
And we did the machining.
Right.
And we did a lot of the work on the big presses and things like that, making machinery. We would make up maybe rudder stocks for some of the ships. And it's a big forging, and it was sent to our shop to have the journal all machined and polished nicely. So they put it up in the stern end of the ship, and then they would fabricate the rudder blades onto this big piece of steel. And then there was propeller shafts. The propeller shafts were always as long as this room. And as the shaft is turning in the ship for hours and hours and hours, they had a bronze sleeve fastened to the outside of the shaft. Do you know how we did it? Okay, you measured the size of the shaft. You had a bronze tube, a big long bronze tube, and the metal would be maybe an inch or an inch and a half thick. And it would be machined inside and outside. And what you do is you make the inside slightly smaller than the outside of the shaft. Now, you take a big blowtorch and heating units, and you'd run flame up and down inside of that, and the heat expanded the metal. And then we had clamps all along there, and there'd be about 6 guys, 3 on each side. We kept measuring it, and when we found that it had expanded enough They said, okay, guys, get ready. And you slide it over the shaft, and it went easily because it was bigger. And then as it cooled down, it shrunk on there so tight you could never ever move it again. You had to cut it off to get it off. So that was a job that we did for C-SPAN, the tugboat company across the water from us. And we put repaired their propellers for them. We repaired all these tail shafts, we call them. And we would put new liners on them and machine them all and send them back to them. So, that's just one little job. At the end of my career, when the VMD had its doors closed, they got them to open it up again for a while. And in the meanwhile, I had said to the girl, well, do all my retirement papers up. That's it, I'm not going back anymore. And then they wanted me to work with a painting contractor who used to go on board different ships, do sandblasting and cleaning and repaint everything. And the biggest job was down in the boiler room. There had to be a lot of equipment taken out so they could get into corners and chip all the rust and stuff off. They wouldn't give the contract to this painter, but they would have given it to me or to the VMD. So I represented the company again, and we worked out a price of about $300,000. And I had to go and do all the bidding and get the amount of money that the painting contractor wanted. And we come up with a price, as I said, around $300,000. And then we went down to Department of Transport.
Right,
yeah. We had to put our bids in there. Well, lo and behold, all the other companies that were bidding on it, I got the best job. So, okay, we got the job. And we went ahead and did it all, and it turned out quite successful. And that was why everybody was happy. But what had happened, this guy, Frank Hertel, had come in and put the VMD in receivership. And because he was now the owner, he never paid any taxes, never paid a damn nickel to the government. And that $300,000 that the Department of Transport was going to pay the VMD, guess who got it all? The government. The government grabbed it all, and even the painting contractor, who probably had a $150,000 job there, he never got paid. So the next thing I know, he's in raising hell that he's all the money he's put out and paid all the wages for this, and nobody. So he ended up getting permission to come into the yard and find equipment. It could be a mobile crane, on big rubber tires and a big crane. And he picked that one and picked a couple of other stuff, and he took his money's worth in equipment from the VMD. And not a nickel of it came back into the company. The government grabbed it all because this guy had never paid any of his taxes. So that was kind of a heartbreaking thing. After winning the contract, everything became successful. The job went good, and then nobody ever got their money.
Mm-hmm.